Here we go. We're going live in 3. Hi, and welcome to If These Heels Could Talk. I'm JoyGenea with Solutions by JoyGenea.
And I'm Michelle with Bad Cat Digital. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Today's conversation comes to us from something I've noticed just amongst friends, like in a variety of communities. I've had friends recently and they are not angry people on every, you know what I mean? These are fairly calm people, but I've been surprised by some of their reactions to experiences with businesses. And then on the flip side, right, we have lots of business friends, and I'm hearing from them about the experiences that they're receiving feedback from customers in a manner that's, I'll just be blunt, violent. Like it's verbally violent, it's physically violent. There was a video
against exactly the wrong people, right? So it might be an hourly employee or somebody the person who's standing kind of right in front of them representing that business, but it's an inappropriate person to
And there was an interesting, what really kind of sparked it for me, why I'm like, we need to let's have a conversation about this right now. Was a video actually that I saw of a gentleman in a Starbucks in Minneapolis who completely demolished the store within a minute. And that wasn't at the store. That was actually, it turns out there are obviously some mental health issues going on. They reported, and they said he was cold and tired, and he wanted to be in jail, to be warm. 5 squares a day, 3 square meals in a cot. And this was his approach to that.
Sure.
So, I mean, slightly different topic. One we're not going to cover today.
Well, but I think that,
I think customers doing that too.
But it feeds into the topic, right? Because I think we all see people behaving publicly in ways that, just as consumers, we're seeing people behave publicly in ways that we were taught not to. But there aren't a lot of consequences for that. I mean, there are some social consequences, especially for those who are, overtly racist or even, and yet, people that are, creating a stink, creating a cause, creating a scene in public, by and large, there just aren't either there aren't consequences, or we're not seeing the consequences, which then emboldens behavior, right? Like when you see kind of consistent people acting or behaving in a way that you've been taught is wrong and bad and is going to have negative consequences on your life, and then you're not also seeing those consequences, then I think the challenge becomes, how do we kind of react with our own behavior in a way that, how do we maintain those standards for ourselves,
those boundaries,
and
that this isn't
those boundaries
acceptable.
and those kinds of understanding of, this is a person standing here who's doing a job. You wouldn't want somebody to come in and take your bad mood out on them when you're at work. Right. But the thing that got me about this, what we're talking about, just to kind of give everybody
the key focus.
But what we're talking about is this concept of customers. Well, I think I don't know. I'm going to challenge the frame. I think we're talking about, you had brought up customer revenge, this idea of customers not liking policies or not liking how they're treated or this or that or the other thing, and so therefore behaving in a certain way publicly to get what they want.
But it's expanded from there,
and it's expanded to social media. But I actually think that the revenge frame really kind of abdicates businesses from creating policies that have barriers to good service. So I think, I don't know, like, to me, this is kind of a chicken and egg conversation,
let's have it.
Customer revenge really feels disingenuous and almost like we're taking sides. We can frame it that way, but I want to kind of frame it differently.
Let's expand it. I like that. Let's expand it. And here's one way I would do that is, when we started to talk about revenge as the topic, I then looked into, all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, but what about retribution? And what about retaliation? And so I looked them up, and it was really interesting. So they're similar, not quite the same. So
Right.
retaliation is the act of hurting someone or doing something harmful to someone because they've done or said something harmful to you.
So what we would think of as revenge.
Right. Retribution is said punishment inflicted on someone as vengeance for a wrong or criminal act.
Okay.
I thought that was interesting. And then revenge itself, the act of inflicting, they're so close, the act of inflicting harm or hurt on someone for an injury or wrong suffered at their hands.
Yeah.
So and then I questioned, what was the difference? And somebody actually did a nice job of doing that. And I like this. Retaliation implies a return of like for like.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. When you say retaliation, I think of it's going to be equal, right? There's a fairness set. Retribution implies a return also for like type of, they see that as.
It feels more official.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then revenge usually carries a strong implication of vindictiveness.
Yeah.
And there is, and sometimes of justified anger that is lacking in retaliation.
Right.
The term more often applies to a desire or intent to inflict injury, or to the gratification of that desire than to the actual infliction of the injury. So,
well, let's just talk about this example, because there was examples of this in some of the stuff that you sent me, but I want to talk about this a little bit. So I think everybody knows it's spring of 2023 right now, and I think everybody knows or knows somebody who was impacted by what happened with Southwest over Christmas of 2022 into the new year of 2023, right? Southwest Airlines experienced all kinds of problems with an antiquated system that they had. They canceled flights, they delayed flights, it was just this rolling problem.
They abandoned people in Arizona.
They abandoned people in airports. They weren't very forthcoming with the things that they should do to help their stranded passengers, right? Like that was not something that happened. I mean, if there's ever a closet case of a business doing everything wrong so that people would be mad at them, that's the case.
That was
the case, right? Like,
and that's not the first time an airline has produced such a lovely example. Actually, they really, like, I was thinking of that CEO that blamed a passenger.
And the CEO blamed the passenger for what they're.
If you're a business owner and ever looking for what not to do, I would actually.
Well, but I think this is what I think though. Mm-hmm. Can we really call what those passengers did in their frustration, in their fear, in their anxiety, in their strandedness, in their lack of options? Can we really call what they said and did revenge? Because yes, it may have been misdirected because the representative standing in front of them couldn't do anything about it.
Right.
And where was it supposed to go? It was a systemic failure of this company at a mass level. And where was all of that? Where was all of that supposed to go? All of the frustration, all of the anxiety, all of the fear of being stranded somewhere and not knowing how you're going to get home. That's just straight up fear. It's scary.
Yeah. Yes.
So I think about that and I think, okay, as COVID has wound down a little bit, and as people are kind of, we all have a shorter line. We just do. We all have a shorter wick. And where is this emotion? Where is this energy? Where is this negative energy supposed to go? Does that person then have the responsibility of dealing with their own emotional crap because they got stuck in an airport? Probably. Like, let's be real. Not everybody.
Like, at the end of the day.
But at the end of the day, it has to go somewhere, right? It has to live. And so I don't know. Like, I feel like there are situations and circumstances where what people do and say online is completely justified. Where customers have a viable thing to say, where people don't like the automatic checkouts, where people don't like, especially when they don't work, when people don't when people get frustrated with a last minute change of hours and poor communication, I mean, there are things businesses can learn from these things, because not everything is quote unquote revenge. Where I think that crosses the line is when people exaggerate and lie. That's where it crosses the line for me. Yeah.
I was thinking about, when it came to this topic, where I've seen in public where I would typically just get mad, somebody would just get mad at a customer service person standing there.
Yeah.
Now, and this is, as I read into the articles and stuff, now because of the online resources available to us, now we just stand there and let loose with a barrage, and you can read these reviews. Like, it's not hard.
Yeah,
when you're reviews and it's like they've given it a 1-star or whatever, and you read the review, you could tell.
If I could give 0 stars, I would. Bleh. And then it's like this verbal diarrhea of crazy.
Well, and I understand, like, so that's come along, and as businesses, we've automated our systems. So now if I want to express myself, there isn't somebody on there who has any empathy towards me, who I'm having a conversation with to de-escalate me. And I've had some professional de-escalators in the last couple of years working with my dad's estate. Like, by the time I got a hold of them for that 10th, whatever, I just told them, I'm like, we need to bring me down a few notches. So I need you to hear me for about 5 minutes. And I have just like, whoa. And they're like, oh, okay. And they just said, oh, ma'am, that's terrible. I'm like, okay, great. I feel good. I said, I'm about a 3 now. We can have a conversation.
Yeah,
and the guy's like,
now I can have a conversation.
Yeah. And the guy's like, great. I really do want to help you. And I'm like, I know you do. That's why I thank you for giving me the time. Like, I knew to ask that. I'm like, if I don't feel heard, we're not going to get anywhere. But if I wasn't talking to a person,
right,
I was at such a point, I'd have started writing. Like, I was really, I was getting there, and I'm like, okay, this isn't productive.
That's part of the challenge, right? When you take the humanity out of service, you lose the opportunity to find the humanity in the people you're serving. Like, you lose all of that, right? So then it's hard for me then that we turn around and call it customer revenge, when really it's a customer just trying to, like, find their own power in a situation where they feel powerless.
Yes. And so then it's more, I'm with you. Then is it revenge, or is it just a cry for, okay, this system might not be working as we'd hoped. Sure, it's super efficient, but yet we're still really angry, and then you're frustrated and triggered when you get these horrible reviews, right? Like, you work with people, you get that 1-star review, and you're like, oh my God, how did this happen? What do I say?
Well, and so I think about a lot of the situations that happen in service where there's a mismatch. It's a mismatch in communication. It's a mismatch in expectation. It's not anybody trying to do anything badly.
It's not malicious.
It's not malicious, right? And so it ends up being, when I think about the efforts that we've made at Bad Cat to create more efficiency, to, move projects through, to get things done in a more timely manner, that comes on the other side at a cost of, well, that means that people have to play in the sandbox we set up for them. If they can't play in the sandbox we set up for them, then they're trying to operate outside of those systems we set up. And they're going to experience challenges in service that we aren't set up for, because we created a system so that it creates efficiency, but then they have to be able to play. We think about this software that we use for editing.
We've used it.
Yeah, we've used it, and it's fantastic. It works really, really well. It's like 95% of the time, it's perfect, and 95% is a really high.
In the world of software,
darn good percentage. But that 5% comes when people are overwhelmed or confused. That 5% happens. It frustrates people. They can't find links when they want them. They need to show their boss something that we sent them, but we sent them through this software and now they can't get in. And that 5% creates challenges. Now that 5% is not enough reason to abandon the system that's created efficiency for most of our clients for most of the time. But it
Yeah.
does mean that when a client is frustrated, they have less, there's less of a path. There are fewer things that they can do themselves to alleviate the situation, which means that they have to reach out for help, which means that may or may not be immediately available, which creates frustration and causes problems.
Nice point. It's that power, like as you're describing it, I'm like,
It's about the power
lack
to
of
fix it,
control.
right? It's
Yeah.
about the lack of control. So if I'm
Yeah.
standing, like it happened this morning, I was 5 minutes late for our podcast this morning because I was stuck in a block and a half away behind a stop sign, behind a garbage truck that
Oh, yeah.
couldn't see me, didn't know I was there, was stopped, and it was very obvious the driver was trying to figure out where he was going because he sat there with the left blinker on forever, which is why I didn't
Move.
stupidly. This would have been really stupid, and if I had gotten hit, it would have been my fault.
Yeah.
Why I didn't try and pass him on the left on a city street in the wrong
Oh, yeah, that would have been bad.
to get around him. And then all of a sudden he turned on his right blinker and he turned right. But he sat there for a good 3-4 minutes and I was already a little bit late. I was already cooking because I don't like being late. So like that experience is like if I had lost my
cookies,
if I dropped my basket.
There we go, drop.
And gone around and I could have gotten hit and that would have been all on me. But it would have been me trying to take the situation back into my hands and control it.
Mm-hmm.
And that loss of control or that feeling of lack of power happens when you're standing in line at the Starbucks. It happens when you're rushed on your way home and you've got to stop at the grocery store. It happens when you ordered your groceries online and then they don't have the right thing, or the Instacart guy shows up and it doesn't have the right stuff.
Right.
Like, all of those things create these powerless scenarios. And when we don't understand what we're powerless to, like technologies, then we act up and our wicks are shorter now. So I think it's an inevitable fallout from everything that's gone on. But
I think it is, and I challenge all of us as humans, business owners, and so forth, to the fact that it's also an opportunity for us to learn, to identify stuff like that, and then choose the win-win. When I feel that escalating and I want revenge, I'm not a revenge. I'm more of a retaliation-y, retribution-y
you and I are both
person.
You're well, I'll say it like this. You're a little bit more of a cold fuse. I'm a flash hot. I get mad and then it goes away.
Oh, you're right. I smolder.
You mull more, like you mull and plan.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is, by the way, scarier. I'm just saying.
I was well trained by professional
mullers and planners.
And so, but because of that, see, the gift in that is I can feel that my brain is starting to be like, like it's starting it's starting to hatch plan. You're right. It starts to hatch plan. And then I'm like, wait a minute. What's the win-win in this? What do I need the end goal? Like talking to that financial guy. What do I really need? I actually need him to help me do this.
Right.
And he's probably good at it and he's going to help me do that. But I unfortunately am so stuck at this moment about not being heard that I'm like, I'm not going to be able to hear anything he says. So how can how can he do this? I challenged his skills right away. And then he was great.
I think defining what it is that is your best, like as a customer or a client, I think defining what is your best outcome of the situation is the way forward. Because if you define that, your best outcome, and you have to be reasonable about your best outcome. That's
right.
You can't expect Southwest Airlines to magically change everything, right? What is your best? What are you really trying to do? Are you really trying to get on that flight, or are you really just trying to get home?
Right.
And are you really trying to get home on a deadline, or are you really just trying to get home as soon as possible? Right. Okay. If what we're doing is really trying to just get home as soon as possible, then we can rent a car. Then we can do this, we can do that. We can, we have choices, we have options. If your best case scenario is to get on that flight that just left right now, it's literally, you're never going to be satisfied.
Right.
And so you're just going to be mad. And then I would say you have your own.
Right. Well, and there's not exactly anywhere to go with that. And
right.
I've even noticed, because you're right. Seeing an airport is a really good place to like observe that, because the emotions are high. Like and you're on
and it's
deadline. It's just,
frustrating. Traveling is a frustrating thing. The day that you travel, like you're tired, you don't know what's going on, and you are, especially in an airport, you're completely out of control.
yes.
Like,
yeah. And you've gone through TSA, and that was its
right.
own little hurdle. And
it's like the whole day you spend waiting in line. You spend the whole day waiting for something to happen. And then when it finally does, you're exhausted. Right?
Yeah. Yes. And it's like, okay, I need to recover. So it's the perfect place to observe people and their coping skills.
Right.
Because I've had to sit at a gate for hours and watch people melt down, like lose their basket all over the ramp and stuff. And other times I'll never forget, I saw a dad and their flight got canceled and then changed, and he's got like 2 kids in tow, and he was by himself, and I'm just like, and they were being really good, but one was getting antsy, and it was great.
Kids. Yeah.
Right? And I'm like, what a great dad, because his response was, you guys, you don't know how lucky we are. They've decided we can hang out in the airport even longer. We might even get to camp here. And the kids are like, really? And he's like, yeah. So first we got to go explore and figure out what we're going to have for lunch. And then he's like, and then we got to scope out where we might sleep tonight in camp. And he enrolled them in a win-win situation.
Right.
And they were like, oh, okay, this is good. And I could see a little on his face, like, frickin' A. As he's telling
me, this is going to be so much work. You watch. I bet one of those kids cried when they did get on a plane that they didn't get to camp in the airport.
Right. He was probably like, oh. But it was I'm like, that's like that. He has a skill. Right? Like that person had a skill to let go in that moment. Okay, plans are changing. I have 2 children.
Right.
If I lose my cookies, they will ride right with me on this tidal wave. Like they will come with me. So I can't do that.
I wanted to take my grandmother to a flight at the airport, and my grandmother and I did not. My paternal grandmother and I did not get along, and she was not she was not a person who enjoyed change. She was not I would say an overly pleasant person when things were changing around her. She's very critical, very judgmental, and very vocal. As she got older, she became much more vocal about it.
The filter came off more.
Really, really uncomfortable in public, right? So it just started right as we arrived at the airport. We arrived at the airport, and she was supposed to be greeted with a wheelchair so that she could get to the gate, right?
Yeah.
Somebody took her wheelchair. There was a person who arrived at the airport, like we watched them take her wheelchair, because the employee didn't verify the person. They didn't know the person. They just knew they were supposed to meet some old lady at this store. So when they got there, this woman and her mother were thrilled to have a wheelchair for her mother.
Wonderful.
And my grandma didn't get her wheelchair, right? So then we say, let's talk to the gate agent. I'm sure we'll get one on the other side of security. So she's exhausted at this point because she's been standing and walking. And so they're doing their best. We get through security, and we get met with somebody with a wheelchair. Okay, great. Nice. So now she's got a wheelchair. Well, her ticket does not have a seat number on it. And this causes a lot of concern, right? So I said, don't worry about it. You're going to be on the plane. They just don't know what seat yet. They're probably just still rearranging people. Fine. So
this is back in the day of printed tickets, isn't it?
Oh,
I
yeah.
can feel it.
Well, okay. Because even you can still get a printed ticket if you insist on a printed ticket, just so you know.
But I mean, that was all we had.
This is probably about 10 years ago. So we get to the gate, which is really far. And now I've been pushing this lady, pushing my grandma, as she makes all of these just not valiant comments about all of the people.
She's scared, feeling out of control.
And she's already mad, and of course we're 7 hours early, right? Like, so we get to the gate. Gates changed. Okay. And we have to backtrack through almost the entire airport, almost the whole terminal, to get to the new gate. And at this point, she hasn't eaten yet. She's really hungry because the whole point was to get to the gate and then find some food, right? So now we can't find food until we get to the right gate. So we go to the right gate, and we pass all of these food places along the way, and she doesn't want to stop. She just needs to get to the gate. She wants to talk to the gate agent because she wants a seat. She wants to make sure she has a seat. She wants a seat assignment because in her mind, that means she has a seat, right?
Yes.
So all the way back, we get to the gate. Gate agent won't give her a seat. Just have a seat, ma'am. We're still working out where everybody's going to sit. No big deal. So she won't let me go get her food until she has a seat. They start boarding. And she's supposed to board early because she's in a wheelchair, but she still doesn't have a seat. So like all of this stuff cooking. Finally, she lets me go get her a sandwich from the sandwich place that I can eat.
Oh, good plan.
And I said, "Is there anything that you eat? Is there anything that you don't eat?" And she said, "No, I'll eat anything." Okay, fine. So I go get a turkey sandwich because it's the most mild, and I know she has stomach stuff. Okay.
Yes.
So I bring back, and she says, "What did you get?" And I said, "Turkey." And she says, "Oh, I can't eat turkey." And then they give her a seat and call her to get on the plane. And now she has no food.
Oh.
She's boarding last. And I cannot wait for her to get on this plane. Because I am exhausted having gone through the airport, which I had to like talk my way into the airport because I don't have a ticket. Right. So like, yeah, the whole thing has been just a complete show.
Yes.
And she was cooking. And she was mean. But the thing is this, she wasn't mean to any of the gate agents. She wasn't mean to the airline people. She was mean to me because I was there.
Yes. And you were trusted. You were family. She knew she could be
mean. She was mad at me because she could trust me and I was there. And so when I think about service issues and I think about kind of how they build and how, you know, if something starts to go badly in an account, like for us, it just keeps going badly.
It does.
It's like it's like you can't stop it. It's like rolling down a hill. It's crazy.
Yep.
And so it's like at some point you've lost the ability to gain trust in that interaction. And at that point it's done. If people just recognize that, we would save so much more.
Yes. Yeah.
But at the same time, I do think that, you know, going online and lying about your experience with the business is just not fair. And you know, a bad review for Starbucks and a bad review for the mom and pop shop down the street is two completely different things. So I think when I think about this topic and I think about customer revenge, I do think about how automation has changed service. And I think about how people's expectations aren't being fulfilled. But then I also think about, you know, maybe we could all use these tools at our hands to, you know, complain about business. Maybe we could all use them just a little bit better.
I like that. That's perfect. I just remind people that you have the opportunity to seek a win-win. What do you really need out of this? And what can you let go? There are circumstances in life. People have experienced intolerable, horrific things.
Yes.
And moved forward.
Yeah.
And learn to let go.
Way worse than being stuck behind a trash compactor on the street.
Right. Way worse than standing in line there. Way worse than, you know, some of the things. It's like, hey, just like put this, you know, put it in a spectrum. Think about. There's a
poet who does a spoken word poetry about this, where he talks about a couple examples. He talks about, what was it, Aaron, the climber who had to cut his own arm off to get free after 5 days. And there was another one. He talks about somebody who was swimming and with a broken collarbone and ended up swimming to save her life because she had this broken collarbone while she was swimming.
Aaron Ralston.
Yes. I almost said Ron's dad, and that's wrong. That's Linda Ron. So
you were close though.
I was close. But there's a poet who talks about that and then talks about, so why is it so hard for me to get up in the morning?
Oh, wow.
You know, like that's adversity. That's adversity. When I think about adversity, I think about, you know, a single mom who's facing, you know, social stigma and just trying to kind of keep everything together on a single income and still reads to her kids at night. That's adversity. That's adversity. I think about people who have to walk a gamut of racism or homophobia every day of their lives. That's adversity. That's stand in line at Starbucks for an extra 5 minutes in the morning. Not adversity.
Right. And it's not anybody else's fault that you packed your schedule so full.
Right.
Like, I have to remind myself that because of my time blindness. Right. So that's one thing that'll get me. I'll be like, oh, come on. Like, why is this taking so? And I'm like, Nobody set your schedule. You did that. You're the one that waited till the last minute to leave the house.
Yeah,
Like, this is yours.
I'm the one that laid in bed an extra 20 minutes today.
Yeah.
I'm the one that did that, and nobody else did that. And so I
Yeah.
created the own emergency that created my anxiety and fear. Now, I would say something different for people who traveled with Southwest. They did not do that
Right.
to themselves.
No.
And yet, they didn't, the first wave of people didn't do that to themselves. The third wave of people, however, did, because it's already been in the news. So
Right.
maybe book with somebody else, maybe deal with it ahead of time, or book with
That
somebody else.
That great price might be for a reason.
Yes. But I, you know, I think about it, and I think about, but I do think about it, and I think about the difference between goals and methods, because sometimes our lack of feeling in control is because the thing that happened isn't happening the way we think it should. Not necessarily it's not happening, or we're not going to achieve our goal. Again, separating what is truly your goal from this method that you have in mind. So my goal is to get home as soon as possible, not my goal is to get on that plane. It's just that the method in my mind, the method for getting home as soon as possible is to get on that plane. Well, if I listened, maybe I would have a different method, because maybe that plane ain't going anywhere anytime soon.
Right. And that's how it is.
Yeah.
And so you have to adjust. And that's, it's possible. We all know it. We've done it.
Yeah.
It's possible. Take a deep breath. Know
And
that you're okay.
And if you want kind of a palate cleanser for all of the crazy customer stories that are out there, because there's a lot of them.
Yes.
If you want a palate cleanser for that, something that's done in a more thoughtful way, there are a couple of people on TikTok who do a really good job of walking through kind of role plays with service challenges in a way that makes you understand that what some people are asking for is unreasonable, like parking so that it's closer to your door, or I think my favorite is well, I know I missed my flight earlier in the day, but isn't there another one today that's direct? No, the other one today has a layover. Well, I was promised a direct flight. Well, you missed your flight.
That was this morning. There's some ownership. That's just, yes.
There's an ownership of it. So when I think about revenge and response, I just think, gosh, we're framing this in such a simplistic way that it's just not, it's not the totality of the situation, because there are people on both sides of everything.
There always is. There always is. Thank you. This has been a wonderful conversation. We're glad you joined us at If These Heels Could Talk, and we hope that you swing back around to enjoy